All right. Well, thank you very much. So the title of this panel is Customer Experience Without Borders. I've kind of talked about it a little bit, and why we're kind of taking customer experience beyond the contact center. Obviously, with the topic that's in it today, we're also going to talk a lot about enablement, as well as kind of the mix of your CX landscape. So why don't we start with introductions and sort of what does your CX landscape look like? Ollie, do you want to dive in?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Ollie Lively, Head of Sales here for a few regions at Luware. So at Luware, we're very focused on the Teams and Microsoft ecosystem. So I totally agree with what you were saying earlier. It's that UCaaS piece and bringing in those other SMEs and knowledge workers in from the UCaaS platform is pivotal really to the solutions that we supply. So yeah, we're focused on that Teams piece, but also that wider Microsoft ecosystem and leveraging those technologies, some of the newer, more exciting technologies like obviously Copilot, but also broader than that. So AI Foundry and the different LLMs that we can access there. So yeah, that's me.
So John Zoltie, I'm contact center expert at Audiocodes. My role, if I put it into three different areas that I look after, three pillars, I suppose. The first is similar to Ollie, so we are Microsoft Teams aligned in terms of Teams direct routing and telephony. On top of that, we have our own Teams contact center solution, Voca. Moving slightly more agnostically, we're now seeing an increased amount of telephony in the Cisco and Zoom arena as well. So we're doing some voice integrations there, as well as voice integration and voice infrastructure into third-party contact centers on top of that. And then thirdly, very agnostically, we do a lot of work with third-party bot frameworks and integrating into UCaaS and CCaaS platforms that we don't provide, but third-party contact center systems as well.
Hi all, my name's Matt. I'm CRO from Acceleraate. So Acceleraate has leaned heavily into the Zoom landscape, particularly the Zoom CX ecosystem, contact center, virtual agent, phone, etc. And we work with clients primarily, I would say, on the more sort of software integration side of things, which I think brings a slightly different flavor and a slightly different context to this conversation. So yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
So it's very interesting because I've got Microsoft Teams, I've got Zoom, and I mean, you've positioned yourself perfectly on the stage for the question I'm about to ask, which is, you know, mostly one ecosystem. Why Teams? And then we'll ask why Zoom, and then we'll say, you know, you're obviously in Teams as well, but you mentioned you're going more agnostic. So why don't we do that flow? Let's start with why Zoom?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it gives us a clean path to sort of AI-ready modern platform without the legacy baggage as we see it. So Zoom's done a pretty good job of building out the platform over the last few years, particularly really getting head down on the CX and AI landscape without bringing any of that sort of technical debt and legacy with it. That means that we can innovate fast and we can also integrate with other platforms as well.
Yeah, Ollie, I mean...
Yeah, I think Microsoft, when you have an organization that's Microsoft-centric, it tends to be a top-down decision, so a board-level directive. And the way we like to view it is Microsoft gives this amazing tool set, and I think organizations are often searching for the way to tie those tools together. So you take Power Automate on one side for integrations with Copilot on another side. It's okay, so what can glue that together? And our view of that is that we can be that kind of orchestrator. And I think you'll hear that word mentioned quite a lot now and coming into 2026. How can we tie those different tools within that Microsoft landscape together? But I think for us, the enterprises that we're working with have that board level directive to choose Microsoft products.
And John, I mean, you mentioned going more vendor agnostic. I know you are on Teams quite heavily as well, but what's making that strategic decision to branch out?
Customers, I suppose. Okay. Simple answer. So we were, to some degree, fortunate enough that we built Teams telephony pre-COVID. And obviously then when COVID happened, the migration to Teams happened to be quite good for us, should we say. So that Teams telephony just absolutely blew up. But I think some of that was speed and ease of deployment, that Microsoft was already, the desktop space, it already won that race. So the natural progression for customers was Teams. I think we're now 5 years on and we've got people that move businesses, they're used to Zoom or they're used to Cisco or they're used to Microsoft. And customers are now looking at, was that the right choice? Do I need to look at a different platform? Then similarly, the other way around as well. We moved to Zoom quite quickly in the pandemic. Actually, is that the right platform? Or actually, do we need different platforms, as complex as it might sound, but do we need 2 different platforms in the organisation, if not more?
And I think you all kind of said, you know, when we were talking before the session, that this move towards more integration, you know, even, you know, I think, Matt, you mentioned this as well, the idea we're a Zoom house doesn't really ring true as much anymore. It might be your primary platform, but do you want to elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's definitely something that we're seeing emerging, and there's more and more pull from the market. Ultimately, clients want a good collaboration platform, but equally they might want a good CX platform as well. And I think that concept of buying a platform and living with its limitations is sort of dead and buried now. I think really actually what clients are looking for is how do we get best of breed technologies to work for us as an organization. So we look at it from a use case perspective. Yes, we've leaned heavily into Zoom, but we work with other platforms because customers require us to work with other platforms. And ultimately, that might be voice. It might be actually how we bridging the voice between those 2 platforms, or it could be actually how we're bridging the AI, the technology, the data feeds, the flows, all of that sort of thing as well. Ultimately, this is about solutions, and you know, customers are buying solutions. They're not necessarily buying technology today.
So, John and Ollie, would you say this is a customer-driven trend, or is it something that customers are changing what they expect from you, you know, in response to what you're kind of offering up?
Yeah, I think we're still at a stage where customers need to be guided, and you showed it on your slide earlier of where they are in terms of that AI journey, and I think we're definitely still very much towards the left. And what we try to look at is low risk but high impact use cases, and as Matt said, it's about the impact. And you can deploy something like an intent bot, right? And for us in the industry, that might seem quite simple, but as you said in your stats there, it can be very transformative. So we don't need to go with these super complex like chatbots, you know, assistive AI use cases to start with. Just deploying those routing or summary or getting the intent out of those summaries can be very transformative to a customer that's come from a legacy background or even come from a UCaaS background where perhaps things aren't quite tying up. So I'd say, yeah, we should really still focus on those. And then once we've got the value out of those, then we can move on to the more complex use cases.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I kind of put a bit up about it on my slide about the demand for integration, collaboration into CX. But can we talk about that trend for a bit? Like, why is that so in demand? Maybe, John, do you want to take us in on that?
Yeah, I suppose it's because the customers demand it. I mean, you've already put it on the slide, so I suppose I'm only echoing exactly what you've done. So you stole probably all 3 of our thunder, but
I'm sorry.
The idea,
I apologise in advance. I'm supposed to tee them up, not just completely.
But the idea, is, I suppose, is simple as you put it. That you've got an entire organisation now, and it's more that the technology is available. It didn't used to be that way. So the technology is now available that you can have a single platform across an entire organisation. You don't have to have a siloed contact centre and telephony users. You can integrate both. You can use the same platform across that estate, whether it's Microsoft or whether it's Zoom. You can use the same technology for back office users. You can the contact centre. You've then got the element that you mentioned as well, which is even if you don't give them contact center functionality, you still need them to be able to transfer calls and give context, and that's complex. That's a difficult thing to do, especially in a multi-platform environment as well, where they have different telephony and different contact center. But yeah, the customers are demanding that they want a single unified platform in a lot of cases. Sometimes they want best of breed, but I want a platform that means I can transfer calls from contact center to back office and back again with context intact, so that the customer experience is still retained as well.
Yeah. Matt, maybe to chime in on that as well. I mean, does that sound like the use cases you're seeing, or is there another use case that you're really being brought in to solve
I think,
that going?
to be honest, the immediate, I hasten to, sorry, I'm reluctant to say the word pandemic, but in the immediate sort of pandemic and then sort of immediate post-pandemic period, a lot of organisations went through a period of what we call SaaS mess, which is where basically they bought a load of sticking plasters to fix small problems, almost like point solutions for point problems. And I think a lot of organisations now are trying to pull away from that approach where ultimately, because of the emergence of AI and the capability of large language models, they've started going, well, but my data's all over the place. I don't have any end-to-end reporting. Actually, how do I, a lot of people say to us, how do we get started with AI? And, data is often the excuse not to start. And I think a lot of organizations are now sort of looking at it and going, well, actually, can we move to a single or at the very most a couple of platforms here to run our entire collaboration, communication, AI stack? And actually, by doing that, does it actually enable us to make more progress with AI and the riches and the efficiency that's promised off the back of these new technologies? So I think it's driven a lot by the fact that organizations have found themselves, through no fault of their own actually, to be honest with you, in a bit of a mess. And we're seeing that consolidation coming through now.
I mean, Ollie, kind of a similar question in terms of, obviously, Luware, Microsoft Teams heavy, this is your main proposition to sell into customers. Is that why you're winning the business? Because they've got a bit of a convoluted thing going on since the pandemic? Or why are you winning that business then?
Yeah, I think the Microsoft strategy is quite clear for customers. But as Matt said, there are lots of apps and CRMs and ERPs that sit outside that ecosystem that they picked up, and they just never got the two talking to each other. So even if we go back to what integrations look like, so surfacing information about customers as they call in, if you're an agent that's never seen who the customer is and seen key contact fields when you're answering that call or answering that chat, again, that can be pretty transformative. So yes, you've got the Microsoft piece, but I think what's really important throughout this, and this has been a theme for years and years now, is integrating with those third-party apps. And that's always been a goal of customers, but I think as technology and automation technology has improved, it's become much more achievable. Previously, you would have to spend, a developer would have to spend a couple of weeks building an integration. Now you can do it within a couple of hours with a low-code platform, and that technology is perhaps being forgotten about slightly, or it's been put on the back burner because AI is so prevalent. But I'd say that technology is probably still the most transformative.
And would you say that's the big impact then of AI in your business, is how fast you can build stuff, or is there another change that's kind of...
Yeah, I think it's like we probably said with AI is I would first look at whether you can use automation, because a lot of things that we touted as AI can actually be automated. And then once you've started enabling tools like summarization and transcription, you've got the data there, and then you can start actually looking at how to use that data. But I think automation is often the first step to look at before AI.
John, would you say similar? I know AI Receptionist is a big product for Audiocodes now. So is that where you're going with automation, or is there other impacts on your business?
Similar answer, really. It depends at what stage the customer's at. We see them from start to finish. So yes, there are customers that are just looking at automation in terms of answering simple FAQs with opening hours and can I just get my balance, for example, for a bank. You've then got customers who are looking at the agent assist piece that we call it, that you've just mentioned, and Ollie, I think, mentioned in terms of transcription and summarization of calls. That's more agent help from an AI perspective. Then we've got customers doing both on top of conversational IVR, conversational AI, doing the automation as well, and then even further into data analytics of all of that information on top of that, and then large language models, and I could go on, I suppose. But we're seeing the breadth, but I think the simple answer is everyone's now dipped the toe in the water. It was quite different a couple of years ago where we were sort of trying to tell people it's probably about time to dip your toe in the water. You'd be behind now if you haven't started at least some of that journey.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, probably interesting to hear from you on this, because whereas Microsoft is, encouraging people to dip their toe in the water, Zoom is very much picking people up and saying, the ocean's there, go on. So, I mean, how is your, as selling Zoom-powered contact center, and then with Zoom rolling out all of these AI companion features, what's that felt like?
Yeah, I think what's interesting for me is that, we're a CX specialist, right? So it probably won't surprise you to learn that the vast majority of the automation AI work that we do is in the CX space. But I think also, look, automation in contact centers is not new, right? We've been doing it for the best part of a decade, whether that's, transactional chatbots, answering simple FAQs, all the ands, ifs and ors, flows and that sort of thing. And obviously the game has changed now because we have generative AI available to us, all prompt-based, and the theory of that, of course, being that we can have almost human-like conversations in self-service environments. Now, obviously, Zoom have gone really hard on the AI side of things. AI Companion free of charge across the platform with a paid license, AI Expert Assist, part of their elite license on the contact center model, etc. And Zoom Virtual Agent as well, which they launched their V2 of in June this year, which is fully agentic, completely generative, prompt delivered as opposed to sort of tree-like and flow-based. And I think that what we're finding is that customers are seeing, customers are sort of understanding what the benefit could be, but actually in many cases they're struggling to realize the benefit of it. And I think this is a failing, should I say this? This is a failing of the channel, because actually what we're doing basically is we're selling them technology, but we're not selling them the solution. And we're not actually showing them how the solution pays dividends and actually becomes real for them. And I think this is where confusion happens. Like, the vendors are guilty of this as well. It's all very feature-oriented. It's not very solution-oriented. So from our perspective, we try to pair it back to the solution. We asked the question, I think it was Tim Russell said earlier, the why of AI. We say, so what? We make it a bit more northern. So we'll say, so what? Yeah. Okay, I can get a summary out of that call. So what? Like, what does that actually mean operationally for the client? What can we do with that data to make the next call better, or to give us some insight in terms of where that customer is in their life cycle with us, how they might feel, what their sentiment is, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's about orchestration, this. You know, the technology is there to deliver all of these things, to create these insights, but we're not doing anything with them fundamentally. And, you know, Dom was talking earlier about the number of AI projects that are failing. They're failing because no one's going, so what? Yeah, we're generating loads of insight and data, but we're doing nothing with it fundamentally. We've got to activate that data. That's where the value is. The technology exists, and that's what we need to be doing with customers.
So this is a really good argument for getting data out. I guess the question then becomes the contact center part of that. So we have this data that we're gathering. That has to then be built in. And is it a unique kind of data that comes out of the telephony infrastructure as part of your business, to focus back on enablement, that makes that part particularly valuable?
Yes. So, well, I think there's two parts to that. So I think from the previous conversation where we're talking about handing off to subject matter experts across multiple ecosystems. So, look, if that's a Zoom to Zoom transfer, that's pretty straightforward. We can retain the metadata, blah, blah, blah. But actually, if you're going from a Zoom to Microsoft environment or a Zoom to Cisco environment or something like that, that becomes more complex. Now, we come at that from a slightly different angle, where we'll say, actually, well, we have an orchestration layer called Integration Hub that we built for Zoom, specifically for Zoom. But the idea of Integration Hub is to connect the dots with third-party platforms. So actually, we can persist that data in the desktop for the agent, regardless of where that call has come from and regardless of where the data lives. So we've come at it from we're solving the problem with software, fundamentally, where we deliver an app into the agent's workspace. But again, this is about joining the dots ultimately, because intelligence exists across organizations. Everybody, every day in every organization has conversations with customers, internal conversations about those customers, conversations with partners about customers. Who's joining that up? Who's bringing that intelligence together? And this is how we're coming at it. We're looking at it from the perspective of, look, there's a lot of intelligence here. How do we make the intelligence real? How do we bring that into that environment?
And John, just to come to you then, what are the challenges that you're having in terms of getting this core quality? Because obviously you have to integrate with lots of different platforms now, bring telephony and CX into those platforms. Like, where are the challenges with maintaining quality and service in that?
Challenges are for the customer and for us, I suppose, by proxy or by default. But in answer to both of your points, actually, from your earlier slide, 80% is still voice. Whichever research you look at, it's 60 to 80%, whatever you look at each day. But ultimately, it's still voice is king. The difficulty is that voice is still really complex. And we, a slight brag, I suppose, we at Audiocodes, we make it look very easy in terms of a platform that makes you, enables you to do Teams or Zoom or Cisco telephony very quickly and very easily with a few clicks. But underneath that, we still have to look at, and I don't want to bore everyone with technical details, but we still have to look at jitter and packet loss and everything else and latency, everything else that makes that voice difficult. So the complexity comes with just doing that for telephony is difficult enough. You then layer in a contact center. You layer in a third-party contact center on top of Teams, and they handle SIP differently, every single one of them. So to be able to integrate Teams with contact center becomes a lot more difficult. You then layer in AI on top of that, and speech-to-text, and text-to-speech, and large language models, and again, it becomes even more complex. So that the difficulty for the customer is being able to navigate multiple different platforms and trying to make it work all seamlessly together.
I think this is where choosing, and obviously there's a conversation around, okay, you're going to choose one ecosystem or two ecosystems. I think the complexity that John's just described is maybe an argument to say, okay, at least if you keep that all in one ecosystem, there should be, in theory, be connectors there. And I think this is where also it's important to understand, okay, where are the strengths of a vendor? So, for example, we're not going to touch the PSTN, we're not going to touch the SBCs or the direct routing, okay? We're going to sit as an app inside Teams, and we're a SaaS app that's going to do that routing piece via Graph API. And this is where the channel can kind of come in, and especially when it comes to international multi-site deployments, the channel, this is where they can really add their value in delivering that voice piece securely and with that quality, and then choosing a contact center app that's going to sit seamlessly in that ecosystem.
Very interesting. So one area I wanted to go into now is, there's obviously, when you're thinking about AI, CX, telephony, you have a lot of voice AI startups coming in saying you do not need a specialized telephony provider doing your front-end CX. You can buy the numbers from Twilio or a CPaaS provider, load them into our platform, job done. Now, I'm going to give you guys a chance to defend your business, I guess, but what do we think about those sorts of claims, right? Is there a place for them in the market? Do they rapidly disappear? Maybe Matt, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. I think that there's two parts to it for me. I'm a bit cynical about this part of the market, particularly just because there's so many providers out there today. But actually, what we're seeing from the core vendors, they're building it into their platforms. We're already seeing it from Zoom, we're seeing it from Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, the solutions that they're delivering are highly performant. So I think ultimately, when you look at CCaaS and you look at your what you might call your corporate front door, yeah, so in many cases that'll be Microsoft, like it's more than just voice, right? It's more than just AI. Look, it's identity, it's security, it's routing, it's handoff, it's end-to-end reporting. Like that's where my cynicism with that comes in, because actually, to what extent do you get that from a standalone AI voice provider? And does that not just compound the problem I've just articulated about point solutions for point problems? Actually, are clients not more interested now in having fewer platforms with more benefit? Is my gut feel.
So John, then coming to you, so it sounds like where we are is that there might be one or two point solutions that can be handled by by that kind of technology, but the second you need an integration, the proposition just starts to, fall apart.
Yeah, scale is another one as well. So yes, some of them have got great solutions. Some of the AI companies are brilliant. It's a different engineering discipline to voice, and they are bot developers and probably bot developers for a reason. And we're voice experts and voice experts for a reason. So yes, that solution exists. If they want a single bot framework, a simple one, and they're regional and the use case is pretty small, it's probably fine. And yes, they probably can bypass the likes of us. As soon as it becomes, can it scale? Is it enterprise grade? Can it handle volume? Is where they start to fall down typically. And that ends up being good for us, because they come back to us and say, we need a voice solution that makes it integrate it. But they'll win some business. I think there's also a nervousness from what I've seen with customers with some of the AI companies. They're new. Some of them have only been around 3 or 4 years. Am I going to sign up to a 3 or 5 year contract with an AI company I don't know that might exist tomorrow? And they might use proprietary large language models, and next week there's a new LLM that's even better, and can I switch? So I think people are a bit nervous around using them for that voice element, and probably look for third parties, and like ourselves, I suppose, for that enterprise and scalability.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think if you are a single site with a single team, just receiving interactions once they've been handled by a bot, then maybe it would work as a use case. But as soon as you need to transfer that to a different office, then all the complexities that we've spoken about occur. But I would say that there are kind of developing solutions out there from these hyperscalers like Microsoft, like Zoom, which allow customers to connect into these more niche AI providers or these newer LLMs, and that's probably the way to look at going. So, for example, with AI Foundry, I mean, they have something like over 2,000 different LLMs on there now. So, if a customer found something that was perfect for their vertical or perfect for their use case, I would say let's look at how we can use a common platform like AI Foundry in the Microsoft ecosystem to bring that in, because then, as John said, if there is something better, or if that company disappears, or your use case changes within the next year, then you're tied into Microsoft, but you can just swap the LLM or swap the AI provider in AI Foundry, for example, and you don't have to upheave your whole voice and your contact center and your kind of processes from there. So yeah, looking at these, I suppose, marketplaces or connection platforms, I think is the way to go.
Very interesting. We have some questions from the audience who submitted them via Hoover earlier today. So we're going to run through them. Some of them are a bit more quick fire, so maybe not all of you have a differing opinion, we'll put it that way. But I think the first one is really interesting because a lot of these questions are aimed kind of directly well at you as the people who sit between UCaaS and CX. So the first question was kind of like, have you seen a change, or who owns your interaction at the customer side? Is it someone who's traditionally in charge of the contact center? Is it someone who's in charge of the UCaaS, or has it elevated now and you're speaking to a CIO? I mean, how is that, or has there been any change?
I was just going to say, I think the stakeholders we're speaking to still broadly fit into IT and operations. So typically we'll see IT opening the conversation and then bringing in kind of operational customer service. I'd say that's stayed fairly consistent. Occasionally now we're seeing more kind of AI, people in that AI role, but yeah, typically it's stayed in those two stakeholder groups.
I think it depends on the vertical, is my experience. So I think you still have some sectors and some verticals where IT are holding on for dear life to the infrastructure and the telephony. But I think probably one of the biggest shifts that we've probably observed maybe in the last decade is who owns the contact center. And maybe that's what's caused some of the confusion and the whole, I guess, that almost microservices model that we've seen across the industry over the past maybe 5 to 10 years. I think, look, we'll be speaking to chief digital officers, we'll be speaking to IT, but quite often IT are involved a bit further down the line in the process now. We tend to find that they get involved when it comes to compliance, security, networking, all that sort of stuff. Actually, it's a lot of the operation that we're speaking to now. And I think that we're starting to see that the CX leaders, the people that are responsible for customer success and account management in these organizations, have a significantly higher level of interest in the technology that's delivering their service than maybe they did in the past.
Yeah, similar, but slightly wider. I think we're seeing some AI people. We're seeing a lot of data security people. It depends on the order, but yes, you need the IT guys that sign off on the security side, or the telephony underneath and the unified comms platform. You've then got the operational people that sign off on, does it have all the features we need for the contact center? You've then got the data security people who suddenly pop up with, hang on a second, where's the data? Where's it going? Where's it being held? And then the AI people that are looking at which large language models are you using? Is it being used to train another large language model somewhere else in the public, etc. So it tends to be a wider range nowadays than it used to be, put it that way.
Absolutely. So the next question, I think is quite interesting as a play on the title, which is, if contact center is without its borders, why is everything still siloed by channel and region? Is there an easy answer to that? It's because companies are old and they have things built a certain way.
Sounds like a new panel for next year.
Sounds like a new panel for next year. All right, question dodged. That's all right. I think this is an interesting one. So obviously, we've got people selling contact center. We've got people selling UCaaS. There is a merging trajectory on that. How do we feel about that direction? Are those two going to merge, or do we think there's still room for the specialist?
We're definitely seeing that direction of travel. So we're often selling contact center and phone in a single deal. That's pretty regular now for us. Where we're not doing that, it's generally because Teams is in there, and then it's a direct connect. So yeah, ultimately, I do think that is converging, and I think that probably that's because, in you guys in the channel, I'm sure will agree that a lot of the value now in what we do is in CX. It's in the service delivery side of things. It's probably I don't mean that, sorry, value is the wrong word there. I shouldn't use the word value, I should say margin. So a lot of the margin is in the CX and the service delivery side of things. So I think it becomes natural that actually partners like us in the market, ultimately where we're asked to sell telephony, we're also interested in selling CX as well.
Yeah, I think you're simply leaving money on the table if you're not looking at that CX piece and you're just looking at the telephony piece, as Matt said. That's where a lot of the margin in telephony has just become kind of commoditized and gone down. So, yeah, you're leaving money on the table if you're not looking at that CX piece as well.
I suppose if you want just to finish off the controversial answer, I guess. But yes, we're seeing people buy telephony and contact center. I think when we start getting to the enterprise level, we're seeing an AI platform across the organization take more of a precedent than the telephony in the contact center. So I don't want to say that contact center will end up being commoditized. That hasn't happened yet. Telephony obviously has been. But we're seeing people looking at an AI platform as the first choice to which platform we buy. It then becomes a bit more commoditized with what do I pick for the contact center and the telephony, because actually if the AI platform can handle most of the interactions, actually those secondary bits are not as relevant or not as important as the AI platform.
So you think if you were starting with a fresh company now, they'd go and say, what automation do I want? What contact center integrates with that automation?
It doesn't necessarily mean automation, but which AI platform sits at the front.
Yeah.
Now that might be Microsoft, that might be a Zoom platform, but it's the platform across the organization, not just how do we automate a little bit in the contact center. It's how do we have automation across the entire organization, not just contact center and a few back office. It's kind of that AI first strategy that we're seeing a lot of enterprises take more than it is which telephony and which contact center is the second choices.
So to wrap us off, there's one final question, which is when did we stop talking about contact center and when did it start becoming customer experience? I'll answer this for us and we'll see if we disagree, but I think it's just when we started being asked to do a lot more stuff that wasn't just connect this call, manage this queue.
Correct. It's when it became more than infrastructure. So ultimately, originally, again, let's go the decade ago kind of argument. A decade ago, the job here was infrastructure, making things work together, trying to end-to-end reporting where possible, creating the right signaling, that sort of stuff. Actually, the job's changed now. The responsibility is not just to provide the tech, it's to provide the solution.
I agree, and I think it's the same as the word agent now being used across AI, that any of us that have been in contact center for however long kind of gets slightly annoying because we've known humans being agents for decades, and suddenly it's now used as a bit of a catch-all for AI, I suppose.
Yeah, I think customer experience is just sexier than contact center, and AI is sexier than that. So
yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll wrap us off, but I have heard someone use agent 3 different ways in the same sentence for their contact center, the AI, and then the agent assistant program as well. So it was the front-end agent, it was the contact center agent, it was the agent assistance agent. And I was like, you need to change one of those words, or 2 maybe. All right, thank you very much to my panelists. I think it's been a really interesting discussion, and I hope we've tackled sort of some of the meat as to the intersection between UCaaS, telephony, enablement, and customer experience. So thank you very much.